Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, depending on wherever you are joining from the PWYP Global Assembly. So we're pleased to welcome you on this platform. My name is Demba Seidi. I'm based in Dakar and working for Publisher to Pay as a senior regional coordinator for Francophone West Africa. So welcome again to this opening session of the 2022 Publisher to Pay Global Assembly. We are really delighted to welcome you, so many members and partners, donors for this event, which is going to run until Thursday, the 30th. So if you're following me, this session will be in English and Spanish, but you can access to interpretation to English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian by just clicking on the stage tab on the right hand side menu in the wide area of your screen, and then clicking on the translation tab just below. Then click on the language you want to hear. Please make sure to mute all the speakers in order to hear the interpretation clearly. Note that if you are joining from your phone, from your mobile phone, please, you can only access interpretation if you're joining from the browser, whether it is Google Chrome, Firefox, Mozilla, or Internet Explorer, but not from the hopin. So if you're joining with your phone, you can only access interpretation via your browser, not via the hopin application. So you will see a kind of a small gray arrow in a circle in the bottom right of your screen. You just click this button and then you will see the option for translation. In case of a technical issue, please, with interpretation, send us a message in the chat and someone will reach out to you straightforward. For French and Spanish attendees, can also change the language of their hopin menu. To do this, please click on your initials or the picture on the top right corner of your screen and then select the language you want. So as we wait for people to join, please, we encourage you to share just one word to describe us how you feel today to be part of Publisher to Pay. Just one word, maybe happy, proud, delighted, or even unhappy, right? I don't think so you are unhappy, but yeah, just one word to describe how you are feeling today to be part of Publisher to Pay. And then that word, you can share it in the word cloud tab on the stage. Word cloud tab on the stage menu on the right side of your screen. You can share that word there. Also, if you have any specific question, comment you want to address to our keynote speaker, Mirtha Vásquez, in the stage chat area on the right side of the screen, you can post your question. If you have further questions also, please ask straightforward. We just encourage people to share very short questions so that we can read and share them with the speakers. A couple of rules we may agree also together so that we can make it successful and very joyful is about being very respectful and then also being very kind with all those participants and speakers as well. So insults, swearing, or any other disrespectful behavior we want to be tolerated, please. So we as family try to be respectful together, and then yeah, everything will gonna be all right this morning or this afternoon, depending on wherever you were joining. If you're still joining, guys, we welcome you to this session. This is the Publisher to Pay Global Assembly, and then we're happy to welcome various members from wherever you're based in the world. Me, I'm based in Dakar, Senegal, West Africa. In 2019, most of you came to Dakar for the Global Assembly. So post on the chat wherever you're based, say hi to people. This is a family. So welcome to members, partners, and donors also as well. Yeah, just know that this session is running from today. This global assembly is running from today to Thursday, the 30th. So the agenda, you can visit it on the platform. You can see every day the great sessions you're going to have and the great speakers we'll be having. We have diverse networking sessions as well. If you want to meet some people, some donors, some partners from everywhere in the world on the area of work you are, so you have that possibility today and from today to Thursday. So just a reminder, this session is in English and Spanish, but you can access to interpretation to all the other languages, including French, Spanish, Arabic, and Russian, by just clicking on the stage tab on the right-hand side menu in the white area of your screen. And then you click on translation tab just below, and you choose the language you want to hear the session in. And so make sure that you mute all the speakers in order to hear the interpretation clearly. So that is for the speakers, right? If you're joining from your phone, from your mobile phone, please note that you can only access interpretation from your browser, not from the Hopin application if you have it on your mobile phone. So on the browser, you will see a small gray arrow in a circle in the bottom right of your screen. Click this button and then you will see the option for translation. In case of technical issue, please, with the interpretation, send a message in the chat and someone will reach out to you. We have some support on the technical issues for anyone here. So for French and Spanish speaking attendees can also change the language of their Hopin menu. To do this, please click on your initials you can see on the top right corner of your screen, and then you select languages. You choose the language you want to hear. As we still waiting for some people to join, please, I encourage you to share this one word to describe as how you're feeling today. You can do that in the word cloud tab on the stage menu on the right side of your screen. Just let us know how you're feeling today and being part of Publisher to Pay. And then if you have some question you want to ask to the keynote speaker or any other speaker, please use the chat on the right side of the screen where you can post your question or your comment. Also, I just wanted to remind all of you, let's say the couple of ground rules we have to agree. It's about just being respectful, being kind of, and with all of people who are there. So insults, swearing, or any disrespectful behavior want to be tolerated during this session and the other sessions as well. So with your permission, in one or a couple of seconds, I will be passing the floor to Olena Pavlenko, the chair of Publisher to Pay Global Council, in 1 or 3 seconds so that we can start officially our Global Assembly, our 22 Global Assembly.
Publisher to Pay family, congratulations on the 20th anniversary of our coalition. We gathered together despite all COVID obstacles, and we have more than 500 participants registered. Usually in his 20s, a person is a university student who is working hard on his or her future and at the same time is full of hope, faith in her success, and has many ambitious plans. So is our coalition, strong and well-established organization, full of energy and plans for the future. We are grown up and have a lot of victories ahead. Publish What You Pay exists now on almost all the continents. Our network reaches the most remote villages in the world. We know how specific communities live, the life of ordinary citizens in different countries. We can compare the official policies of governments and the real life of the citizens. Publish What You Pay is a truly unique voice of people from all over the world. In 20 years, the coalition has grown from a small office to the network of more than 50 national coalitions and more than 1,000 member organizations. This is so great that many of those who launched Publish What You Pay are still part of the coalition life. I met Stephanie Rochefort in 2010 in Bishkek, where she presented Publish What You Pay to the civil society organizations in Eurasia region. A decade later, we still are working together on Publish What You Pay development. And the same goes for so many people who stay in our coalition for many years. I think it's possible to stop working in the Publish What You Pay, but it is impossible to leave the Publish What You Pay. The Global Council and Executive Director will be happy to share the results of the coalition's work later at the Assembly, and I invite everyone to our presentation on June 30th. Actually, I invite you to attend as many discussions as possible during the Assembly, as it will show how great our coalition members are and how huge work they are doing. Now, let me just say briefly that we have developed more channels of communication with coalition members, developed gender policy, launched several global campaigns, held strategic discussion, and joined the process to reform the EITI standard. Since the last Global Assembly, we have welcomed new coalitions in India, Lebanon, Kosovo, South Sudan, and Colombia, and new members in Kuwait. And since this year, we will strengthen our presence in Latin America and the Caribbean. Despite the COVID pandemic, the Publish What You Pay Global Council members met online, first every second month and then every quarter, to discuss coalition issues and respond to the various challenges. On behalf of all members of the coalition, I would like to thank those people who help us work and communicate with each other from different parts of the world. This is Publish What You Pay board members, Publish What You Pay Global Council members, Publish What You Pay Secretariat, and our Elisa Peter. Elisa, I know for sure that all members of the coalition admire you and are sincerely grateful for all your work. During your leadership in Publish What You Pay, you have made all of us much stronger and much more confident. Thank you very much for this. For 20 years, Publish What You Pay focused on anti-corruption, transparency and accountability, EITI implementation in all parts of the world. New members of the governing bodies who will be presented during the Assembly will have to consider the new context of the modern world, with all the issues of climate change, decarbonization, digitalization, cyber wars, shrinking of civic space. Publish What You Pay will have to keep its role as a strong and influential global organization, and our voice should remain professional and influential in the global world. Finally, I would like to thank all the members of the coalition for solidarity and support of each other. I'm sure that your words of support helped civil society organizations in Myanmar, Niger, Kazakhstan, Philippines. As a citizen of Ukraine, I'm also very grateful for your solidarity and support in time when Russia started the war in my country. Thank you for this great sense of unity. As a thank you from all Ukrainians, let me give the floor to the Ukrainian band that will perform a short song. The Velvet Sun is a band from Kiev that combines East Slavic melodies, elements of hippie, jazz, blues, folk, and art rock. The name of the song is Spindle Fabrics. It is written in the style of ancient Ukrainian fairy tales with a mix of modern music and ethnic tunes. I think the words will also appear on the screen. Guys, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hope you hear us well.
Can you hear us?
Шапками дала мені нитки, та й сказала мати, що собі побачиш, будеш вишивати. Починай безсвітня, далі буде драма, вишивати літо, вишивати драма, вишивати квіти, що було, що буде, вишивати світ, вишивати люди, сіточками рясно, вишивати вину, бо в нас не часу. Загорнули сонце, буду колисати, погляня зібрати. Пішли у полі, полошили плети, а за ними вийдуть, степові лети, запагати вийдуть, півдорогі лоси, а не стоїть мати, щоб усе жилося.
Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Now, let me introduce Mirtha Vásquez. Mirta is a Peruvian attorney and politician who served as a Prime Minister of the Peru. She is also a well-known environmentalist and served on the board of directors for the National Coordinator of the Human Rights. So, Mirtha, the floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am Mirtha Vásquez, and I would like to start just by thanking the great honor of having me here to this 5th Global Assembly, where we're going to be discussing a key topic for the planet, for survival of humankind, and basically this is related to how we fight against a situation that has been caused by the humanity itself, which is global warming, how we intend to just have all of these safe transitions through a series of models that basically have created and keep on generating a serious impact on the planet and this environment where we're still living. So I would like to begin by saying that we have a development model that has been somehow obsolete and that has been understood as sustained growth. So this sustained growth is based on a progress ideology. This ideology basically assumes that economic growth and the increase of these financial rates is going to have an impact that is going to lead to this poverty alleviation. So over the years, we know that this has not been proven. On the contrary, what we have found and we have experienced over these past years is that this financial index increase has created to higher inequalities in the world. Right now, we have a system that is based on extractivism, on the unmeasured use of fossil fuels such as oil, gas, carbon, many more activities that are causing this greenhouse gas effect. And of course, this is something that is leading to this uncontrollable situation. We know today that global warming is above 2 centigrade degrees, and this is going to cause a serious impact and severe damage on our planet. For that reason, well, I can tell you that we have been living in this terrible environmental crisis in Latin America. Is one of those regions that has been mostly impacted on by this crisis, and it is more vulnerable. We are part of the regions that has been losing the largest amount of this diversity. We have been exploiting and depleting our resources. We are destroying our areas for, well, we know that we have an extractivist situation in our region. This is the situation, and basically we are just supplying raw materials such as oil, minerals, gas, and this distribution has not been conceived, or this exploitation has not been conceived in terms of having this equal approach in terms of issues that are faced by the different populations in the world. This is not considering just addressing this energy poverty or addressing these basic services to be able to address the worst issues in the population. Extractivism follows a different logic, a different trade-related approach. For instance, a very specific piece of information is that while in our countries in Latin America, basically, we are just supplying power for exporting purposes, and these energy exporting efforts are more specifically for those northern countries where about 18% of the population, world population, at those locations, such as countries, let's say, that are OECD members, are about 18% of the population that uses 4 times more than 82% of the world population that lives in the remaining countries of the world. So we cannot just really say that the energy system is key to improve the life quality of the population, but it is also clear that the design of our model for power generation is not conceived based on that. Moreover, it is just a machine designed to start exploiting resources. Latin America is the region that supplies the largest amount of energy to the world. 20% of energy comes from this region. A large part as well of resources such as oil have been exported, while our countries, their deficiencies in terms of this type of resources. I am Peruvian, and in a privileged country, not only in terms of gas, oil, mineral resources that we also have populations that are not having their basic needs met. Year after year, about 600 persons die in the Andean region because of a lack of power supply or heating systems. And well, we know that, of course, cool temperatures kill people, and about 20% of these people are children. We cannot meet our demand, our need to get and have all of these resources and energy just somehow addressed to the sectors that are in the most need. So in our country, we have a gas use project in our country. About 50% of this gas goes to exporting. And in those areas where this resource is obtained, people needs to get small gas bullets at $20 each. So this information allows us to tell that the use of these resources, energy production, is not being considered in an equal basis to address the population's needs. Today, we still have a lot of areas in our country that need just meeting their energy demands. They do not have access to electric power or natural gas to address their climate issues. And in Peru, just like the rest of Latin America, is just basing its economy on the extraction of mineral resources. Mineral resources are basically the sector that contributes the most to the economic growth of our country. A key reason to continue exploiting minerals in our state is that it contributes to the generation of financial resources. However, the side effects from this extraction and exploitation of these resources resulting. So we know that we have a lot of issues in our country because we have been occupying indigenous and farming lands to be able to get all of these resources. And of course, this is going to end up in the displacement of these communities. There is a large impact on the population that has been affected by all of this exploitation chain, extraction chain, when trying to get all of these mineral resources. But the climate impact is one of the most impactful, not only because we are losing biodiversity, but also basic resources such as water. With the pandemic, the situation has worsened. We have this backlash in our economy because, just like with this lockdown, the extraction and exploitation of all of these resources and exporting of these resources decreased under the pressure of this financial reactivation in this desperate attempt by governments to restore the political order in what is supposed to be a new normal. Again, this is putting a lot of pressure because of this unlimited exploitation and extraction of mineral resources. We have a biopolitical management of this facing this emergency. And the financial sector in this area plays a key role where it imposes conditions to force states to just try to continue deepening this extraction model. Right now, we are at high risk because financial pressure, the emergencies that we have at a financial level as a country, and this is due to the fact that states are having more political positions in this regard. This pressure has led to more repression, violence. Right now, we have many areas that have been declared under emergency when it comes to conducting all of this extraction projects. It is also important to take into consideration the background of this challenging world. We are facing and going through a war. Basically, we have an issue with oil supply, and this leads to higher pressure as well. In order to be able to start just exploiting all of these resources in Latin America, due to this price increase, we have a context in terms of war context that is also related to this demand of mineral resources. Amidst this war, there is a higher demand to get more minerals such as copper, and this is putting a lot of pressure on this exploitation under any condition in our countries. When we think about transitions, well, I can tell you that this is a challenging moment in time. I believe that there is a series of factors that lead us to think that the situation becomes more and more complex. Let's say if we think about just moving towards other economies that are more sustainable, then we know that this energy supply, in fact, is going to just stay away from these fossil fuels for us to start just considering other types of energy supply that is more sustainable. That's a big challenge in this moment.
It's a very big challenge regarding this context. And of course, it's a great challenge to be able to change our extractive economies towards more sustainable economies concerning the well-being. At present, after the pandemic, our economy still depends on fossil resources. We still have communities that depend on this type of exploitation, hence the energy transition. Surely, in an inappropriate manner might generate greater inequalities. And this is why this is the moment where we need to think in a very creative manner, in a very proactive manner concerning the way out so as to be able to produce these big changes. At present, we have to focus once again on crucial objectives, avoiding thinking about the market-based circumstances. We definitely have to solve issues concerning the markets. We have to think about exploitation of resources based on the needs and not, of course, speculation. And we also face a challenge concerning this energy transition throughout the world, and which represents, as a matter of fact, a challenge like countries in Latin America. Towards this energy transition in the north, we need, or rather, we've seen the exploitation of certain basic minerals, like, for example, copper, lithium, and this, of course, will create greater pressure on countries like the ones that are found in Latin America. Yes, of course, it's a big challenge today to think on how can we carry out these transitions and how can we have the proper conditions for our population and for these conditions to be fairer ones. Not only do we need to solve this issue of global warming, we have to solve altogether this problem concerning the needs of the inhabitants. I'm a woman that has gone through a transition as well, a very complex one. I've gone from being an activist, an advocate, accompanying communities that defend their territories, and they, of course, defend in their territories their subsistence and survival. But I've also gone from being an activist, a lawyer, and also a member of the government. Under unexpected circumstances, not only did I become a member of parliament in my country, but also I became chair of the Board of Ministers, or the Council of Ministers, which definitely is one of the highest positions, state position. And this is how can I can inform you about my experience. I can tell you specifically the advocacy circumstances that take place in the different territories, and I'm clear that it is fundamental to defend these territories, the lives, the goods from our nation, because they are crucial for the lives of our communities. But I've also had the experience of being part of a weak government that depends on these extractivist communities, depending on economic resources that these economies generate. Of course, we do have many needs in our country. I might, as a minister, be able to understand this paradox of seeing how our communities do not have basic needs. They die, and they do not have access to energy. But I have also seen the need to conciliate this, because our resources could be taken advantage of as much as possible, and in a certain way they can be a source of resources for our country. There is a large pressure, and we face a big challenge. But I am fully convinced of the following, that to be able to structure our society that might generate energy, that might take advantage of its natural resources, definitely we have to go through this, avoiding this market-based circumstances. We have to go or create awareness that these are the rights of our inhabitants, and they cannot be focused only on the markets, and we cannot allow these resources to be used for speculation purposes. Yes, of course, we can generate a better system to take advantage of our resources for an improvement of energy, to generate energies that will definitely cover the needs of the population, the basic ones. And yes, of course, all of this can be achieved, but what is fundamental is that this should not take place as it's taken place in the past based on these dominating relationships. That is not an option. We need to change our patterns and our visions concerning development, which not only will allow us to reach sustainability, but we have to aspire towards something fundamental. In other words, what is being claimed by our communities, which is living in properly. Thank you kindly. Hello, Mirta, and thank you so much. Let me introduce myself. My name is Maria Lia Ramos. I'm part of the communities of the PWYP. It's very early in Peru. I hope you have a cup of coffee, and thank you so much for the chorus, excellent music. Thank you, Olena, and thank you to your being so courageous, talking about the Ukrainian people. Mirtha, thank you so much for sharing with us your time, your knowledge, your experience. There is much to talk about concerning your presentation: inequality, collateral effects, competitiveness, the lack of energy, climate change. And online with us during this global assembly, by the way, it's the first virtual one, we have defenders and activists throughout the world that challenge the powers to be in our sector. This is one of the most opaque or shadowed one, but at the same time one of the most powerful one. So we have to request for accountability. You know, this is very difficult. I speak personally. You come from a country which is rich in hydrocarbon and mineral that also has part of the Amazon basin, and where in your territory you can find farmers and communities, indigenous communities, which of course have created many social conflicts with regards to the extractivism. So what inspires you to carry out this very difficult and risky job? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I'm a woman that was born and grew in a province considered one of the poorest in the country. It's a province where there is a large rural sector, Cajamarca, and I've seen how people have struggled much to be able to conserve or maintain their territories. And following this struggle, not only have they lost basic things like, for example, the possibility of continue living in their specific locations where during decades they have been located. As a matter of fact, they do risk their lives. I've seen people die defending their land. And I believe that this should create greater awareness. We have a duty, not only as citizens, the duty that we have in any space where we find ourselves, as to be able to advocate for something so basic as life. And this not only should inspire us, but it has to push us to think every day on how we can help. There are many people that are found there risking the only thing that they have, which is their house, their standards of living, their way of life, their life in itself. Thus, I believe that all of us should support wherever we come from. We have to take advantage of those struggles and create conditions for those people to at least be able to recover some level of dignity. That's right. That's right. 20 years ago, the published What You Pay with its roots in Angola. It was a civil war, and the oil companies continue extracting oil in that land. Organizations like Global Witness wanted to discover how the Congolese government continued not being transparent from a banking perspective, and they they saw the companies that operated in Angola, and they wanted them to publish what you pay. Therefore, the movement began because of a lack of transparency, extractivism, improper management that we see in these countries with resources. But the British Minister Tony Blair launched the initiative to reach these extractive companies. This took place over 20 years ago, and we've achieved much as a movement. And some of us have not finished, and the movement has not ended, and there's still much to be done. What about the saying, Mirta, to wish to do something is power, and for example, social movements to be able to obtain information concerning these extractive movements. As my experience as an activist, I believe that information is power. I've been able to ratify this knowledge because on many occasions when the communities have ignored crucial aspects concerning the projects, this not only has placed them at risk, but it's generated an important disadvantage. I can mention a few examples. At Cajamarca, where I have lived and where we see one of the largest gold extractivist companies at the start, when they operated in these areas, they did not give information whatsoever. We were never given information on how they handle, for example, certain important things like, for example, dangerous material. So the population wasn't empowered so as to request this kind of information. On June the 2nd, back in the year 2000, the Ramome Mercury Company in a specific town, by accident, of course, but the population did not have the least information of what was happening, what was that mineral, or what was rather that product. And mercury, was manipulated, hence all the population was unfortunately infected, and they're now dying because of these heavy metals. And we realized, therefore, how important was it to obtain information, fundamental and basic and strategic information concerning these projects, and we started with an exercise of requesting information from the government to be able to convey the proper information concerning the environmental impact studies, topics that had to do with contracts, and crucial subject matters that had to do with the conditions under which the state has reached an agreement with these companies, so as to be able also to understand what the government can say in regards to this topic. Yes, of course, much has been done in Peru on this subject matter. Talking about Cajamarca, and maybe this is the opportunity to talk about the case of Maxima. Now, for those of you that have not heard about this advocate, this Herring, an environmentalist, she's a farmer that lives in the highland of the Andean region, and her struggle to remain in that location back in 2011 with a mining company. It was the Buenaventura company. They were operating one of the copper and gold mine, the largest one in the world. They wanted to expand the mine, and the enterprises alleged that they had purchased properties that were part of the local community, including the land of the family of Maxima. The expansion is called the Mina Conga, which requires much water, and they had drained nearby lakes, and the mining demanded Maxima to leave her property. She denied, and she was intimidated violently by the hands of individuals, and the family could not occupy her land, and she was allegedly fined and sent to prison, and then she got in touch with your organization, and the courts were in favor of Maxima. Could you address this topic a little bit further, and generally the role that you think that this situation, this dispute or litigation, what is its role specifically? I wish to say that it is very important at present to remember the strength and courage of Maxima Acuña. As many other farmers, they are indigenous people in our country. She suffered violence concerning the violence of this extractivist policy. She lived in a land that was part of a farmer community that thereafter was disassembled, and the mining enterprise was purchased, and all the land was purchased, but she never wanted to sell her land. And then the enterprise, as you have already said, wanted to remove her from her land by force. She was denounced, and she resisted. And I believe that this is what is peculiar in her case. She's not the only person affected, but yes, it was she, the only person and the only woman, that decided not to leave and not to accept the decision of that enterprise that was pushing her to leave her land. But she wanted to fight for her rights. As she said, I'm going to fight for the right to maintain my land, but also for the right, for a collective right, because her land is found in a very privileged location where it is surrounded by lagoons. And by the way, these water sources will provide water to the towns that are found downhill. Hence, Maxima defended not only her own right to maintain her land, but also the right of non-destruction of the lagoons, of the water sources that were found in this region. Therefore, her struggle has cost much. Truly, she began defending things on her own, trying to repel that violence, not only of the company, but also by the state, because we have to say that in this country, the state is a state that takes care of private extractivist enterprises because they generate income. So you had a woman with her family defending herself from the violence of the enterprise and the state that constantly surrounded her by law enforcement, pushing her to leave her land. And she resisted. She resisted physical violence. She resisted psychological violence, symbolic violence as well, because she was qualified as a person that was not allowing development in that region, but in the country at large. She was said to be a woman that wanted to damage private interests, and nevertheless she decided to defend herself, and she has utilized different mechanisms. Not only has she used legal aspects. That was the last thing that she used. But she generated actions so as to be informed, for people to be informed of her struggle. And she searched for the support of the communities, the importance of defending the land and water. And then she opted to utilize the judiciary system because it's the company that denounced her. So we have carried and carried out a strategic litigation. And I wish to recognize that these types of strategies are crucial because finally they convey greater elements so as to be able to legitimate your position. A strategic litigation because not only is it to state in the trial the defense based on the legislation and the standards, but also to address the rights which sometimes are not acknowledged in the law. Community rights, collective rights, solidarity rights, but also trying to search for visibility with regards to her case and, of course, balancing the power with people. So I believe that in this period it's crucial to be able to think that litigation is an important tool because if you're able through litigation to be able to be right, it legitimated Maxima. Violation stopped when the judiciary system said she was right. Therefore, we have to consider that this is an important tool. This is a tool that needs to be understood better, that there are different spaces where it can be used, not only the domestic litigation system like international litigation systems, like, for example, the human rights, Inter-American human rights, which has been a great tool, the Inter-American human rights for the movements in Latin America, by the way. I can see that there is a question on the chat related or coming from Lisa Peter. Dear Lisa, here it goes. Latin America is one of the most dangerous locations for advocates, men and women of the environment, taking into account that it's expected that the extractivism of minerals, transition ones, has increased in the region. What do you think needs to take place to guarantee that the environmental advocates, as well as the communities in the mining regions, be protected and trained so as to be able to participate in decision-making procedures? Yes, it's very important also to recognize at present the high risk that advocates, men and women, face in countries like ours. In Peru, for example, there are two sectors at present that are being attacked. The communities where mineral resources are extracted, which are basic for transition as well. For example, in the southern region, the mining corridor at present in the country, the communities raise their arms, they're in conflict with the state, with the companies, because of a lack of compliance with regards to commitments. And the response of the state has been repression. And in the last few months, we have seen people injured and have died because of these law enforcement repressions, which of course it's a true pity with an administration, the administration that we have at present. But we have the hope that they will revert these models where we see the joining of extractivism with this topic of authoritarianism and violence. We have another sector like the indigenous communities, which have been strongly attacked because the informal extractive economies exist, like, for example, the extraction of illegal wood and drug trafficking, which are entering into their territories. And there is no protection policies for these communities. Therefore, in the last few months, they have killed, they have murdered different indigenous leaders. And in the last few days, we have seen how the indigenous communities have reached the capital city announcing that they themselves will defend if the state does not defend them. They are requesting to be authorized even to be able to use weapons so as to be able to defend themselves from these attacks that they have been facing from these informal actors. And there is no response from the state. So what do we need for this purpose? There are different things. I believe that the first thing is that the state, the governments need to be aware that we have to implement a decisive policy to defend those that defend the territories and the goods from nature. And they do not understand. While I was working in the government, we were able to establish standards so as to strengthen the defense of advocates, but our policies are weak and we have not been able to implement it properly.
We need to start assuming international pledges. We have the agreement of Escazú, which core lies basically on the protection of environmental defenders in countries like Peru do not want to endorse it or ratify it because, of course, we know that its ratification and adhesion is dependent upon our Congress. Unfortunately, our Congress, with our precarious politics, we do have people there. We have this informal or extractivist economies or informal that do not allow these policies to move forward. So right now, at this time, the only thing that we could do, I think, is to start reacting from the civil society to try to generate protection networks to assist these communities to report all of this, because we cannot allow to continue generating these types of attacks against lives without people raising their voices. It is key right now to make these issues more visible, to start putting pressure on governments. Right? I agree, Mirta. So unfortunately, we have to stop right now. We had a lot of questions for you on the chat box, including COVID and protection and the defense of women. Activist, lawyer, and who also took part in the highest ranks of the public service as Ministry of the Congress and as part of Peru. It has been such an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for your time. Dear Maria, dear Mirta, thank you so much for your interesting exchange. You gave really relevant answers. Well, this type of work is really important. Thank you so much for the deep reflections, insights, and governance and energy and civil area, transparency. Thank you so, so much. Now it's time to continue moving forward with today's agenda. I will switch back into English.
So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you are following us. As you know, movements like people have their life cycle, they get older, and for that, we need to remain relevant to our time. And to be relevant to our time, we need to make sure that we take into account the diverse voices, especially the younger generation voices. When Publisher to Pay was created in 22, some of our members were really young and children even. Yep. So today, they are 20 years or 30 years old. Many of them are concerned by the climate crisis, and all of them are directly impacted. Some live in countries that currently rely heavily on fossil fuels and will need to adapt. Others are in countries that are rich in strategic minerals. Others are coming from countries that bear a huge responsibility for causing global warming. What binds them is that they expect publishers to pay to engage for a fair and just energy transition to cleaner energy. In line with the position adopted by the movement in April last year, we will now screen a short film featuring 7 young people members from regions around the world who have a message to share with you, with all of us. So just another reminder, the video will be screened in English, but there is interpretation. So keep on your language and then you can hear everything translated from this video on French, Spanish, Russian, Arabic in the expo area of the event. Rebecca, if you're ready, please, can you launch the video?
Normal morning walk. Sorry, it's up a hill, so forgive me for panting.
شهدت العاصمة بغداد خلال الفترة السابقة 22 يوم من العواصف الرملية.
Las sequías se vienen pronunciando mucho más con cada año.
Give it a few hours and I won't be able to take this walk that I'm taking right now because it will be ridiculously hot. This is an effect of climate change.
The good thing is that we already know the solution. We have to phase out from burning fossil fuel
in favor of clean energy sources.
So how do we make sure that energy transition benefits citizens in my country?
We simply cannot afford to continue allowing powerful corporate interests and greedy politicians to monopolize the decision-making process.
Les décideurs doivent tenir compte de toutes les parties prenantes. Le genre, les populations autochtones, les jeunes, les enfants, parce que ce sont eux qui sont les plus affectés par les problèmes de crise climatique.
Pero lamentablemente no se les toma muchas veces en consideración.
يعتمد الاقتصاد العراقي وبنسبة 97% على عائدات النفط والقطاع الاستخراج.
It's going to be much harder for countries that rely on oil and gas to adapt when fossil fuel demand inevitably falls.
حيث أن العراق لا يمتلك البنى التحتية التي تسمح له بالانتقال إلى الطاقة النظيفة، وعمل شيء كهذا في هذا الوقت قد يسبب العديد من المشاكل.
Wealthier, higher-emitting producer countries that have benefited the most from fossil fuel production should be the first to prioritize phasing out fossil fuels.
They need to provide the finance and technology to support the countries in the global south to mitigate and adopt the climate change.
Обеспечить возможности для того, чтобы проверенные технологии и ресурсы распространялись и были открытыми для развивающихся стран, чтобы те, в свою очередь, могли их использовать для смягчения последствий от изменения климата и продвигать низкоуглеродную экономику.
Phasing out fossil fuels also means increased demand for minerals like cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, and others that power clean energy technology.
So how do we avoid replicating the negative impacts of fossil fuel?
PWYP играет важную роль в продвижении открытости и прозрачности в добывающих отраслях.
It is bringing communities, experts, and campaigners together to ensure the community's rights over natural resources, as well as a just transition happens on the ground.
Energy transition is everybody's business. First world countries, third world countries, developing countries, developed countries, the poor, the rich, the old, the young. So we need to come together, band together, and begin to solve this problem. Where there is unity, there will be victory.
Rebecca, thank you. We've heard great voices, great messages from these young people from diverse regions, diverse countries, diverse contexts. In the next 10 minutes, we'll be hearing other voices, great voices from people who used to be with Publisher to Base since its start to now. These are the pioneers among the other dozens of pioneers of Publisher to Pay from all the regions, West Africa, Central, Indonesia, Latin America, Europe, Canada, US. We're all grateful for the great work, the contribution you've provided to Publisher to Pay. But we've chosen 3 of them to share a couple of, let's say, reflections on their career, their adventure with Publisher to Pay during the last 10 years or 20 years. One of them is Olena Pavlenko, who is the president of Dixie Group and chair of Publisher to Pay Global Council, and Cielo Magno, associate professor at the University of the Philippines School of Economics, who is also an EITI board member representing the civil society organizations. Cielo used to be the Global Council member and a former national coordinator of Publisher to Pay in Philippines, Banta Kita. And the third one is Emmanuel Quirle, who is the program officer of the Ford Foundation in the Natural Resource and Climate Change Program. So Emmanuel used to be also a very active member and a pioneer of Publisher to Pay in Ghana. I have 2 questions for these great pioneers of Publisher to Pay. The first question is, all of you will have the same questions. What are you prouder of personally in your work over the years with Publisher to Pay as member or partner or donor? And also the second question is, what resonates with you when watching these videos of young people looking ahead? What do we need to do more, or do we need to differently as Publisher to Pay to be effective? Question 1, what are you prouder of personally in your work over the years with Publisher to Pay? Second question, what resonates with you watching this video we have just seen here of the young people? And then looking ahead, what do we need to do more, or what do we need to do differently as Publisher to Pay to be effective? I'm starting with Olena. You have just 2 minutes to answer to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as answering the first question, I'm very proud that I'm with the Publish What You Pay coalition for more than 10 years already. And it's still interesting. It's still the possibility, together with so many great people, to expand my knowledge, to increase my knowledge, expand my communication with so many great people around. There is a proverb that big trees grow slowly. And I think our global movement is growing. It's slow. It's growing slowly. But if you are with the Publish What You Pay for some period of time, you see the results. How some ideas which were discussed a few years ago, after some time, become real actions, become real results. And I'm really proud that I had a chance to participate in the discussions. I had a chance to participate into the realization of these ideas. And I have a chance to see some results of these ideas. I'm very proud that I am a chair of the Global Council, and I have such honor to represent Publish What You Pay on different meetings and events. And really, really thank you very much for this great opportunity and possibility to present you. I'm happy to represent my region, Eurasia, because it helps me to meet so many great people in my region, to talk about our common problems in the region. And when, as I said, when we had the war in Ukraine, I have felt so many support from people in Eurasia and from all over the world. And again, thank you very much, dear friends, for this great support. Regarding looking forward, I really liked this statement which was said that where there is a unity, there is a victory. So I very much hope that Publish What You Pay will stay united, and it will be not easy to combine and to take into account all the factors: decarbonization, climate change, as I said, this digitalization, wars which started. But we have to stay united, we have to stay focused, we have to stay professional. And I really, really will be happy to support everybody in the new Global Council, the new board, to achieve the results for the future. Thank you very much. Let me pass the floor to you, Demba.
Great. Thank you so much. Cielo, it's up to you now.
Thank you, Demba. You actually made me count how long I've been with Publish What You Pay. Now I feel old. First question, what makes me proud? I'm very happy and very excited to be working with civil society members, community, to be pushing for that venue, to create space for us to actually confront governments and companies. Because in these opportunities, we're able to raise questions that are not typically discussed in boardrooms. And these are hard questions that need answering. And I think through the effort of Publish What You Pay, we're able to do that in many instances at the international level, at the national government level, at the community level. Now, the hard question that I think we should be answering: for the past 20 years that we are working as members of Publish What You Pay, we've been working on how the extraction of non-renewable resources can contribute to the sustainable development of many countries. But as Olena mentioned and as Mirta discussed, we are faced with so many challenges, including the climate crisis. And I think it's time now to ask the difficult question of when and how we are going to end the extraction of raw non-renewable resources. Because the reality is, while we transition to cleaner energy, communities that are already currently vulnerable to climate change will be worse off with the extraction of critical minerals. And to genuinely achieve sustainable development, we have to work towards ending the extraction of non-renewable raw resources. And that's the difficult question that I think we have to answer sooner than later. Thank you, Demba.
Thank you so much. Yeah, great. So Emma, it's up to you now. Maybe one of your prides is being part of the development of the ECOWAS legal and policy framework. I remember that we were together on that process. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And congratulations, Publish What You Pay. After listening to Cielo and Olena, what more do I have to say? 20 years in 2 minutes. So one of the biggest contributions of the campaign that I can think of right now is deepening and broadening the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative itself, and the implications of that on policy and regulatory reforms in many, many countries, especially in Africa. So I think back in 2004, where Publish What You Pay members in Ghana sitting on the multi-stakeholder group, push for subnational reporting. This was unthinkable at the time. Eventually, it led, 12 years down the line in 2016 to the passage of the Mineral Development Fund with the provision that made 20% allocation to mining-affected communities. At the same time, in Nigeria, civil society requested for a more comprehensive review, which included the physical and a process audit. That process led eventually to making substantial contributions to the Petroleum Industry Act, which was passed in 2021, which included provisions that also now recognizes oil and gas affected communities by setting up the community development scheme and also giving a voice to the communities. At that time, Liberia, civil society was pushing for EITI to be implemented in a forestry area, which was unthink of again. A lot was happening in Zimbabwe and many other countries, including Cote d'Ivoire, where there was a civil war. So a lot has been achieved. Now, looking forward, I was just watching the video, and what came to mind was a question that my global director, Professor Anthony Bebenton, Ford Foundation, just posed to us only last 2 weeks, and we have been thinking about it, which is about agency. So how do we think about agency going forward? And how can we make it effective? Because traditionally we have looked at agency from a CBO, civil society perspective. But here we have young people, some not organized, individuals wanting to engage. Beyond that, we also have faith-based groups, labor unions, women's groups, disability groups. How do we make the campaign effective by, drawing on the strength of all these groups, especially the youth? Thank you.
Great insight from all of you. So thank you so much for this contribution, for your contribution from start to now. You have done a great job within Publisher to Pay. You have echoed voices of all these young people. And then now these young people have still some questions. We have, let's say, addressed some of them through your comments and your insight. But yeah, there are still other pioneers. I told you dozens of them are there joining us from everywhere in the world, including Ali Drissa, Atai Demota, Moses Kulaba, Mutu Sos, CM Bwaza, Simon Tyler, Sonita, Victoria from Nigeria. So thanks to all of you for your insightful answers, you three. And then we now like to hear from some other pioneers, those I have just listed. And 10 of them have also responded to our young members' concerned in a short video. So you can also find this video in all the languages in the expo area of this event, but also we'll be sharing the links just after this session through email so that you can watch and have more time to watch these videos. So we're going to just see the next video with Rebecca, if you're ready to hear other voices, other pioneers also who responded to the questions, to the concerns from these young members. Rebecca?
Proverbe tunisien qui dit « Une seule main ne peut pas taper ». Nous devons être plusieurs mains pour avoir beaucoup de bruit et taper ensemble.
PWYP provides a network of civil society activists connected around the world in their struggle to make sure that citizens are benefiting from natural resources.
To help poor and disadvantaged communities that are affected by the exploitation of mineral resources, to have a say, to have a voice.
PWYP has evolved. As the network has brought on new members, we're seeing now younger people coming into the movement. And of course, that also represents new dynamism, but also represents new ideas and also new approaches towards our campaigns.
So far, we've been really focusing on the revenue streams and the contract accountability and the beneficial ownership issues, all of which are important and we must continue with. But this elephant in the room we simply can't ignore.
Ang mundo ay nasa punto ng isang matinding pagbabago. Ito ay ang pagbabago ng klima at upang maiwasan ang matinding pinsala na ito, ay napapanahon ng bilisan natin ang pagtransisyon sa isang makatarungan at malinis na enerhiya.
But an energy transition that overlooks the needs, voices, and priorities of people living in countries dependent on the extraction of oil, gas, and minerals will undermine and already fragile economies and also impede effective climate action.
Certain projects will become economically unviable, and we need to know which ones they are.
Information is power, as they say.
Стремительно возрастет спрос на некоторые полезные ископаемые, которые необходимы при производстве, транспортировке и хранении электричества, которое добывается при помощи ветра, воды и солнца.
E tratar a mineração com o enfoque de sempre só vai piorar os danos e problemas existentes.
Мы будем использовать наш опыт, чтобы обеспечить справедливый переход к более чистому энергетическому будущему.
Une transition qui centre les voix des personnes qui dépendent
actuellement du gaz, du pétrole et des mines.
Sa loob ng 20 taon, ang Publish What You Pay ay nakikipaglaban upang maging bukas at accountable ang extractive industries. Ang laban na ito ay mahalaga noon at higit na mahalaga ngayon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you for those who also shared their insight in this video. We are really grateful. So, ladies and gentlemen, into 5 minutes, we'll be completing the session for today. But before getting there, we would like to have your feedback. We want to evaluate this session, how people experience this session, this platform. Did you enjoy it? So we're having just a very short survey we want you to complete in your respective languages. It's a very short one, just a couple of seconds will be there. And then we're gonna share later what the program is about the rest of the week and especially for tomorrow. So Irene, if you're ready for the survey, please, can you share that survey so that people can evaluate the session? Thank you. Good. So you can see the link on the chat box. Please click on that one. It's the SurveyMonkey link. And then on your respective language, please just share your feedback in 2 or 3 seconds. We are there. See the link in the chat box and then complete it. I hope you're getting there, you're completing the survey. Please share with us your feedback. It's important. It can help us to improve for the coming sessions. And as you know, in a couple of minutes or so, we are having a kind of, let's say, networking session. The networking session is very important. It's an occasion for you to meet other people, other members from everywhere in the world. We can meet partners who are working on the same areas that you are, and then you can share your experience with them. It's a kind of 30-minute of maxi, let's say, networking. It's important. It's like if we had an in-person meeting, you would need so this kind of networking session. So yeah, we're giving you the possibility for this platform, and that's why also we have used Hopin to organize this global assembly. It gives you the opportunities to meet some members, to meet some groups, to meet partners, etc. So in 2 minutes or 3, you can join the speed networking session, and it's starting, and it's an opportunity to meet you with your friends as well and connect with new people. So you can join it through the People tab, just on the same platform, or if you want, you can just disconnect and connect again. Maybe you need a 5-minute break to come back, and then on the left hand, through the People tab, on the left hand menu on your screen, so you can see the list of attendees, and then you can interact with anyone you want through this, let's say, platform. What you were writing, it's only things you can see, but the whole group want to see what you are writing when you're interacting with someone there. So also tomorrow we look forward to see you in another session about the just transition for resource-dependent countries. It would be at the same time at 12 Universal Time, 12 p.m. UTC, please join us to enjoy that session about just transition for resource-dependent countries. So in the meantime, please, for those who haven't done yet, complete the survey to give us your feedback about how you experience this session today and the platform, and any other useful comment you want to share with us. And then we look forward to meeting you tomorrow again. So note that this Global Assembly is starting today, but going till Thursday the 30th. It's 4-day meeting sessions, networking you're going to have with this platform. You can use the same link you have used today, the same, nothing is changing, the same process you used to get into this platform today. So from today to Thursday, you will be joining great sessions on different thematic area, including energy transition, gender, women rights, and contract transparency. And the governance session is happening in the last day. We'll be adopting, or we'll be commenting, reviewing other, let's say, governance documents, including the manual of governance, and then we'll be also adopting the gender policy, the global gender policy of publisher to pay. So great. Happy to meet you also tomorrow. Looking forward to that. For those who haven't completed the survey, please go ahead, do that into maxi 10 seconds. You will be there, and look forward to meeting you tomorrow again. Thank you so much for all those speakers who were with us this morning, Mirta and the pioneers, the young voices we have heard. It was great. Thank you so much, and look forward to meeting you now in the networking session, and then tomorrow at 12 p.m. Universal Time. We'll be happy to also kick off on the energy transition, the just energy transition for oil-rich countries. Thank you so much, and have a nice day from wherever you are joining. If it's the evening, also have a good evening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.